Today, we're making skirt steak fajitas. My name's Angela with KamadoCook.com. If you're new here and you want to see more cooking videos like this, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, I'm sorry, I'm not better looking. Today, we're going to be making skirt steak fajitas. Skirt steak is not an amazing cut of steak, but they do make amazing fajitas. So we have to do a few things to sort of tenderize it, loosen it up, make it taste as best as possible. And one of those things is marinate it overnight. So I have two good sized pieces of skirt steak. What we're gonna do is make a very quick, easy marinade, throw it in this bag, put this in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow we'll take it out, we'll season it, and we'll go ahead and cook it on our Kamado Joe. Couple of things about skirt steak and just meat in general. Any meat in the history of meat, when you slice it, you want to cut against the grain. It loosens it up and it gets it ready for chewing, basically. Skirt steak, so you see how it's shaped, it's long and skinny, and what you're gonna want to do is cut it this way. You're gonna wanna take this and cut it horizontally because it's already the right shape. But that is the way the grain is going. So when we're done cooking this, you can't cut it this way. You can, but you shouldn't cut it this way. You actually want to cut it long ways to go against the grain, tear those fibers, and make these bites as nice as possible. So when we're done, what we're gonna do is we will cut it into sections, and then those sections are what we will slice against the grain. So that was just a quick tip. Any meat that you make, when you serve it, you cut against the grain to really loosen it up, tear those fibers, and get it, give you the best possible bite. So for now, let's make our marinade. You know me, I keep everything as easy as possible. I could sit here for 25 minutes, pull out 38 different spices, a tablespoon of this, tablespoon. I just keep it as simple as possible, especially with something like a marinade. The purpose of a marinade is to add a little bit of flavor and really tenderize the meat and just, help it out. The marinade is not going to be the primary flavor. The marinade is just going to help it along. So I'm not going to spend 45 minutes putting together some crazy concoction that I'm sure would be delicious, but it's just not, I honestly don't have that kind of time. So what we're going to do here is we're going to keep it nice and simple. First, you can always just get a pre-made fajita marinade. Those things are great. Let those experts put all the time and effort into mixing 30 ingredients to come up with one. So I like to use Claude's pre-made fajita mix. And again, this isn't gonna be our primary flavor. This is just to help it along. So I like to use this, and I add in some orange juice. If you have pineapple juice or even grapefruit juice would work. The reason I do that is I like just a hint of citrus flavor, but also the acid in this orange juice will help break down this meat. Skirt steak is not, it's not a great cut of meat. It's kind of a trashy cut of meat. So you want to help break it down and loosen it up and make it as, as tasty as possible. So, and then we're going to hit it with some hot sauce. Anybody who watches this channel or my other channel, you know that I am a giant UFC fan. I've managed professional fighters for a very long time. And this happens to be a hot sauce made by one of the best lightweights on planet Earth, Dustin Poirier. So it's a Louisiana style hot sauce, so it's real spicy, and it has some hints of garlic in there. So we're just gonna get this meat in the bag, load it up with some of our pre-made fajita marinade, add in some of our orange juice, and then I'm just gonna hit it with a couple of squirts of this hot sauce, and we're gonna have an awesome marinade for our cook tomorrow. Super simple, nothing really scientific about this. Just get our meat in the bag, add our pre-made marinade, our orange juice, and then I'm going to hit it with a couple of squirts of the hot sauce. That's it, super simple. Now we'll just go ahead, get the air out of the bag. Easiest way is to just fold it, push it forward, and then as you're holding it down, give it a nice zip. And we just want this to sit in the marinade overnight. We'll flatten it out so it's submerged. And then what I'll do every few hours is just flip it over to make sure that it's getting sort of an even drowning, if you will. So we're done for today. Super easy. Just put together our marinade. This is going in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow when we come back, we'll light our fire and we'll cook these. We're grilling direct. This is not a low and slow. We're not reverse searing or anything like that. We're gonna get it nice and hot. We're gonna put these directly on the grates without a heat deflector, and we're just gonna go ahead and cook them old style grill. So if you don't have a Kamado grill, if you have a regular gas grill or even a pellet grill, just get it nice and hot. If it's a pellet grill, get it 400, something like that. Get it nice and hot, throw this on, and cook it. It's almost a sear on both sides, essentially. So we'll come back tomorrow, we will light our fire, and then we'll go ahead and get these fajitas up and running. All right, it's a nice windy day, so excuse the audio. We have a nice full charcoal basket here. I have 4 fire starters. I always overcompensate my fire starters, so you can get this done with 2. I'd rather get this fire lit completely, evenly, and not mess around with anything. So we're just gonna let this come up to temp. I'm immediately putting my grates in because we always want nice hot grates. And there are no heat deflectors in this cook. So we're just gonna let this come up to temp. I'm gonna leave the lid open the whole time, even during the cook. So I literally am doing nothing. I'm just making sure my bottom vent is wide open for air. And then that's it. We're just gonna let this cook. We're gonna let this get nice and hot. If it seems like it's getting too hot, I will shut the lid and start to dial it down. But for now, we're just gonna let this fire catch. We'll let it get nice and hot. And then we're gonna throw our skirt steak on a minute or 2 each side. Our skirt steak's been marinating overnight and now we're ready to cook. So this is just gonna be a direct, hot and fast cook. This is not gonna take very long at all. When you've seen me brine chicken and things like that, when we take it out, we rinse it off. I don't really need to do that here. I'm gonna shake it off, get the liquid out of here, but I'm not gonna rinse it. I don't need to dry it. I'm just gonna take it out of this bag and we'll season it up. So I don't want it soaked, obviously, but I don't need to go out of my way, like I said, to rinse it or dry it or go through that whole process. So we have our 2 pieces of skirt steak, and I'm gonna season them with Meat Church's fajita seasoning. We're making fajitas, so that's the flavor that I want. Skirt steak is very versatile. Lots of people do chipotle lime and things like that, and then they eat it as is, or they'll mix it in with something else. This is fajitas. I'm doing onions and peppers elsewhere, not on camera, and we're gonna cut it and we're gonna put it in fajitas. So that's the flavor I'm going for. I am gonna hit them with some lime before I eat them because that's what I like. Ultimately, you can season these however you want. I am going to season them after the marinade. There are thicker marinades with chunks of garlic and larger pieces of herbs and spices that you just take it out of the marinade, put it on the grill, no extra seasoning needed. This was a thin liquid only marinade. We hit it with that garlic hot sauce, but it's a thin liquid only marinade. So now we're just gonna add some seasoning. And what's interesting about this is if you've seen me season other pieces of meat, I coat the hell out of it and we cover every inch of it. This is not a brisket that's this thick. This is not a giant steak. This is very thin and this is strong. So we're just gonna do a nice little layer. It's not gonna be drenched. Just touch it, just like that, on both sides. And then we're done. So you can still see the color of the meat. So we've obviously seasoned it, but we didn't coat it. This isn't drowning in seasoning. So we're just gonna leave this, let this sit, make sure our grill comes up to temperature. If you're erring on the side of caution, I would rather under season than over because you can always touch it up after. This is very fajita-y, so you're gonna taste it. And this is a very thin cut of meat. This could literally be cold cuts for a sandwich. It's very thin. So that's why it's a hot and fast cook. It's gonna come out really, really well. Let's go outside, we'll get this on. We're grilling over direct heat, nice and hot. Our fire is almost up to temperature. I'm just gonna give it another minute or 2 and then we'll just go ahead and throw our skirt steak on. This is easy, this is fast. This is like regular grilling on a gas grill. You just throw it on there and you're good to go. There's a lot of cracking and popping and sizzling in here. I'm using a bag of Royal Oak lump. That usually is awesome for me. I never have any issues. Today, there's a lot of cracking and popping, so it might not be the best batch. It does not affect the cook at all. So if you see your charcoal popping and hissing, it's just inconvenient and loud, but it's not gonna throw off your temperatures or do anything like that. Sometimes it's an indicator of wet charcoal. This is not wet. This was fresh. But no worries. It's not going to throw off our cook. But if that happens to you, just keep cooking. It's not a big deal. So again, I'm going to give this another minute or two. Then we're going to get our skirt steak and throw it on. There's no temperature probe. I'm not using a meter. There's really no science here. It's not even thick enough to probe if I wanted to. We're just throwing it on, waiting until I get a nice little crust, flipping it over, doing the same thing. You're going to take it off, let it rest, and then cut against the grain. All right, this grill is up to temperature, so let's get our steaks on. It is windy because it is never not windy in Texas in the winter. So this is pretty straightforward. I'm literally just going to cook this over direct heat. I do want to make sure these flames don't consistently stay this large, so I'm not trying to burn this. I am trying to cook it, obviously. We do want a nice crust, but again, I don't want char on the outside. So if I see this flame in the middle continues to stay up with no relief, I will close the lid for a minute or two, or not even for 30 seconds or so, just to help that die down. And actually, I'm going to do it right now. That's been pretty consistent, so let's close this lid. I'll leave the top open. We still want some air. I'm not trying to kill it, but we'll just give this 20, 30 seconds to make sure that I'm not burning the bottom. Shout out to my buddy Landry. I know you watch all these and you love watching these cooks, so shout out to you. Let me know if you want me to cook something specific. I'm happy to do it. So we've killed that flame a bit. I'm going to let this keep going. See, look, that's coming out great. It's not burning. It is cooking. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that my grill has a hot spot. The back is hotter than the front. Doesn't matter how I build my fire or what I do, the back is always hotter than the front. So let's flip these in a minute, and then we'll rotate them, and we'll just keep doing that until they're done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and flip and rotate because that back is definitely getting much more heat than the front. So let's cook these evenly. All right, time for another flip. I like to flip often. I don't want to accidentally overcook or burn, and I find that flipping often really helps me out there. I'm doing direct heat. I could do this with the lid closed, and that could be beneficial because the lid gets heat in it, and that residual heat from the top will help cook the meat. But I like this direct flame cooking with a cut of meat like this. So again, we're just going to keep doing this. This is probably going to be 10 minutes total. Do a couple minutes aside, couple minutes aside, couple minutes aside. If we see a fire getting too big in the back, we move it to the front, and so on. So this is still cooking behind me. Again, couple of minutes, flip it, couple of minutes, flip it. I like to keep my eye on it because anytime we are grilling with the lid open over direct heat, it is possible for the flames to get too big and that fire to get too hot. I don't want to burn these. I just want a nice crust and a nice, pink center. My wife likes well done, so one of these is going to stay on a little longer. But I'll probably cut them, see where we are, and then put it back on. So again, we're flipping, we're moving, we're rotating. I don't want to leave this alone. I just left to clean the cutting board because we've used the same cutting board. But I'm not going to leave this unattended for 20 minutes because the fire could get out of control. These ceramic grills do really well when there's a controlled environment, but once that lid's open, it's not a controlled environment anymore. So let's just keep flipping and moving forward and see where we end up. So I just did a flip, and you see that the back right here is cooking faster than this side. So again, we're just going to rotate and move. And you can get a sense for how done these are by how flexible they are. So obviously we still have some bend in here. I can tell it's not quite ready, especially on these parts over here. But earlier when we did this, it was just flopping and flipping all over the place. So it was raw. All right, I think we should be good. So I'm going to take one of these off and cut it. I am not a magician. I am not a psychic. So I'm not positive where we are, but I think we should be good. So let's go ahead, cut this open, and see where we are. Yeah, that looks great. So we definitely cooked a little too long, and that's perfect because my wife likes well done. I'll take this one off, check the same. And here we have some pink. So we're good. It was that fast. There's our pink. It was that fast of a cook. Nothing too complicated, super easy. So we're done. Now it's time for me to shut the grill down. After we do a nice hot cook like that, it's a great opportunity to clean the inside of your Kamado. So what I like to do is I leave the bottom vent wide open, and then I leave the top open a couple of notches. I still want this fire to be fed, but I don't want it to be ridiculous. I'm not trying to get to 1,000 degrees, but if we get to 600, something like that, that's a great way to clean the inside of the grill and burn off any of the fat drippings from all the cooks we've been doing. So I always use these opportunities when I cook that hot. Let's just leave it that hot for a little longer and clean the inside. Overall, this is about a 10-minute cook once it got on the grill itself. Super easy, super delicious. You can use whatever marinade you want. The key is cut against the grain. So you see, I cut this into manageable pieces. And now, this is the direction that I need to cut my meat to eat it. Against the grain. And you can see the way the grains are running. We looked at it when it was raw, so we know how those grains were going. You always want to cut against the grain to make sure you get a nice bite. The fibers are already torn up and it's nice and soft and easy to eat. So let's check this out. That's fantastic. And I taste that hot sauce. So this came out great. Super delicious. Use whatever marinade you want to use, but just make sure you grill it over direct heat. Flip it often so one side doesn't burn, and you'll have delicious skirt steak. Thanks for the watch. Let me know if you have any questions. I respond to all the comments down below. See you soon.